going to try and explain to you all how to effectively break down a paper 2 question. These things can be very complicated, and sometimes if you see a paper 2 question, you're going to almost panic because sometimes they're really, really complicated. So, when all hope appears to be lost, there's things you can do to make the question easier for you. So, don't panic whenever you get a paper 2 question, just be prepared to unpack it. Here's a sample paper 2 question that I got from an actual IB exam. Examine the claim that state sovereignty is challenged by non-governmental organizations, intergovernmental organizations, and other non-state actors. If you see this on an exam and you have like 60 minutes and the timer's already started, you might start panicking, right? What do they want me to do? I have no idea. There's too many things. That's where you really need to take proactive steps in order to, number one, calm your nerves, and number two, break it down so you realize exactly what the IB wants you to do here. So the first thing that we're going to do is find the command term. Always, 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 always find the command term. That would be the very first thing I do, aside from reading the question. Find the command term and really try and understand what the requirements of the question are. So looking at this question, the command term is, hopefully you all noticed, examine. So, hopefully you have an understanding of what an examination is. If not, you need to probably go over what command terms are. An examination is, with an examination, you need to consider an argument or a claim and cover the assumptions and interrelationships. So how things work together and what assumptions exist within this idea. So for this, we need to focus on the assumptions and interrelationships of the main claim or the idea itself. So we have a command term. Step one, we're done, we're good. We know that we need to examine something here, but what are we examining? That leads us to step two, which is find and identify the main claim. The main claim typically is really easy to find in a paper 2 question. It's going to be right here, right? It even says the claim that. So identify your main claim. You can even highlight it or do whatever you need. The main claim here is state sovereignty is challenged by non-governmentals, intergovernmentals, and non-state actors. At this point, what we have is the main claim. This is what the whole entire focus and what content is going to be called into question. This is vital to answering your question. If you cannot find the claim, you really need to come work on that with me. But this is it. That's what you're going to be arguing for about 2 pages right here, that claim. Okay? Now, step 3, I think I skipped step 3. Whoa, I did. Okay, sorry. Step 4 is step 3. At this point, step 3, you want to identify potential content areas that can be focused on. So we have the main claim, we know the command term, but what content areas can we really touch upon here? And sometimes this is harder to do with a really difficult question. This is actually an easier question because what we have done here is we've identified sovereignty, we've identified NGOs, IGOs, and non-state actors. Like, we've talked about all those things, so we have content knowledge here. It's just structuring it and finding out what we can actually really talk about. Even if you aren't too confident in the focus of the question, attempt to find some connection to something we've discussed in the past. If you can do that, you can hook yourself into this question in some way. What we have here, we actually have a key concept, which is huge, and that's sovereignty. That's amazing. Sometimes key concepts aren't as apparent, but if you can find, if this wasn't here, examine that non-governmentals, intergovernmentals, and non-state actors challenge a state. Then we can say, okay, well, what element of that relates to our class? Maybe legitimacy, maybe power. Those are other key concepts. It's not mentioned directly, but maybe you can reason it out that power is related to anything. So at this point, we are going to do step 5, which is actually step 4. You complete what is called a brain dump or a memory dump on the topics. Basically what I did was I wrote down as much as I can remember on the spot about all those content areas I identified. Sovereignty, right? Sovereignty, we learned Westphalian, post-Westphalian sovereignty, we learned that internal, external sovereignty. I'd try and remember what the definition of sovereignty is. I'd go over IGOs. What is an IGO? Maybe a couple examples of IGOs that we've looked at. Same thing with NGOs. Same thing with non-state actors. What did we look at? Any examples I can think of. So I've basically written out quickly as much as I can remember about those content areas. That way I have, a little cheat sheet in a way. And you can actually write this on the exam. You can put it on like your scratch paper. And at this point, you want to identify major words that can really help give you context to the main claim. And the major word that I've noticed in this question itself is challenged. Challenged is a huge word. It's telling me specifically what slant or what idea I'm taking in terms of this claim. And I'm looking at how sovereignty is challenged or influenced by, in almost a negative way, by these organizations. Right? Ask yourself, what does that really mean to the claim? So I've actually focused, what does challenged really mean in this situation? Sometimes the IB gives you really complex words that are challenging on their own, and sometimes it's up to you to really break down what that word means specifically. Does it change how you review these ideas? So initially, we might have been thinking really kind of positively, but now if it's challenging state sovereignty, if it's challenging it, that's almost like a negative connotation. So we have kind of a slant here. My question to you is, this is just kind of like a side note, what if it changes? Like, what if there's a different word? Like, if it's supported, what does that mean? So state sovereignty is supported by non-governmentals, IGOs, and non-state actors. At that point, we need to almost justify in a way through support. But anyways, what we have is challenge, and that's kind of the key right here. So we're focused. Okay, go back over. At this point, we have as much as we really need. I would go back to the main question and try and review all the elements together, okay? Right? So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of these. Let's get rid of this. What we have is examine the claim that state sovereignty is challenged by NGOs, IGOs, and non-state actors. If we remember, we're examining, we're kind of reviewing relationships and ideas and how these words are all connected to some way. What's the connection? We're examining state sovereignty and the challenge that these organizations have on sovereignty. We've done a brain dump of what sovereignty is. We've tried remembering what IGOs, NGOs, and non-state actors are. We have examples. Now, at this point, what we need to do is start creating, right? Reflect on all you've done at this point. Attempt to start developing an argument. We have the ability to start creating an argument here. Is this question really that hard? I mean, it is challenging, but hopefully it's a little bit more reasonable. Hopefully it is digestible. Hopefully you have something you can start doing, right? I would say identify a few examination points. One point of examination for how state sovereignty is challenged by non-governmental organizations is this. Start making connections between all that you've done and how the question words itself. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Paper 2 is really challenging, but I think just becoming more confident and being able to break down the questions themselves is really going to be beneficial to you. Okay, so that's the end of this little video. Like I said, ask me questions if you got them.